Southport killer's parents failed in moral duty to report son. So there has been a big inquiry, and I have mentioned this previously, and you will be actually shocked when I tell you this next part. I actually thought this inquiry, where there was catastrophic failures by the parents of that absolute wrong'un, Axel Rudakubana, the Southport killer, and various agencies meant clear chances to prevent the 2024 child murders were missed. A public inquiry has concluded. So, when I've mentioned this previously, it was around about 6 months ago, saying that the parents are to blame and they carry a big burden and they should definitely be imprisoned for their failures. But when I've been looking through the report and a few different articles, I was absolutely shocked to find out that they will not be facing criminal charges. So no criminal charges. Merseyside Police confirmed on April the 13th, 2026, that the parents will not face criminal charges as there is no legal duty for parents to report their children's criminality to the authorities. How absolutely fucking ludicrous is that? I actually thought that because they've been found to be catastrophic failures by the parents, which I am going to go over, people, but I actually thought that these two parents would have been facing criminal charges and they would have been fucking going behind bars where their son is. And that is why the video I done yesterday, talking about how Axel Rudakubana is on a 4-man unlock, which is 4 prison officers, of standing outside his door when they unlock him, and they will have shields because they are in fear that he is going to attack them again. And after the findings of this report, the catastrophic failures, the reason why his dangerousness, shall we say, has been heightened inside of HMP Belmarsh is because to do with this report as well. Some newspaper articles are saying that because of this, he is more of a risk now to the prison officers because of this finding. Because he'll be upset that his parents have been named and shamed and that they are to blame for what he done. So, like I've said, I thought they would have been facing criminal charges, but I hadn't realised that there is no legal duty for parents to report their children's criminality, even though they're at risk of harming little ones, going into schools and doing what they done. I'll better be careful what I say, and killing little kids because of their sick ideology. But if the parents are aware of this and they don't do anything to stop it, they don't face criminal charges. But following the inquiry, there are recommendations for Law Commission to consider creating a new legal duty for parents to report their children's criminal behaviour. But it's not just any criminal behaviour. Obviously, parents aren't going to report their kids if they're out smashing windows or causing criminal damage. But this is an absolutely different thing altogether. This is endangering lives. There's lives endangered. He's already been caught with weapons and knives and attempted to go into school previously. And Alphonse Rudakubana didn't report him. So I am going to go over a few things here. Like I say, I went over a few things in the report and I could go on forever talking about this because it does go on and I'll be talking for over an hour, but I am going to just talk about the more important bits. And the inquiry concluded Axel Rudakubana, who was 17 at the time, should have been detained before he walked into the Taylor Swift dance class and stabbed 3 girls. The inquiry chair, Sir Adrian Fulford, found. Sir Adrian said if his parents had done what they morally ought to have done and reported his suspicious behaviour, he would not have been free on the day of the attack. So how can they not be held responsible for that? But a merry-go-round of referrals, assessments and handoffs on his autism being used as an excuse for past conduct meant no agency understood the danger he posed. Baby King 6, Elsie Stankham 7 and 9-year-old Alice De Silva Aguirre were killed in the attack, while 8 of the children and 2 adults were severely wounded. Rest in peace to those beautiful little girls that were murdered, and this is an absolute catastrophic failing, and it's just absolutely ludicrous how, when it actually says that this wouldn't have happened had he have been reported, but yet he was free to go on to do the attack, and even though it says he would not have been free if he was reported, but no one is going to face criminal charges. What is the fucking point in having this inquiry if no one is going to face any criminal charges at the end of it? So in a 760-page final report following phase 1 of the inquiry into how Rudakubana was able to carry out the attack, Sir Adrian called for the end of what he described as a culture of agencies passing responsibility between each other or downgrading their own involvement in cases like Rudakubana's. He described it as the single most important conclusion of his report, adding, "This failure lies at the heart of why Rudakubana was able to mount the attack despite so many warning signs of his capacity for fatal violence." Absolutely outrageous. So Axel Rudakubana's parents, because there was a couple of reports and a couple not reports on this, but there was some of the things that I read online which weren't true, saying that his parents had actually went back to Rwanda. But his parents, Alphonse and Laetitia Mozari, if that's how you pronounce it, are currently living in a secret location provided by the police for their own protection. They were relocated following the July 2024 Southport attack. As of mid-April 2026, their whereabouts remain confidential. Recent updates regarding their status include the public inquiry in November 2025 and early 2026. Both parents gave evidence to the Southport inquiry from remote locations. During these hearings, they expressed profound remorse for failing to stop their son. So his parents haven't been sent back or returned to Rwanda. They remain under police protection. While there have been recent high-profile calls for their deportation, several factors currently prevent them from being sent back to Rwanda. British citizenship. Both parents are British citizens. Under current UK law, a British citizen cannot be deported unless their citizenship is first revoked, which it should be, which typically requires proof of fraud during the application process or evidence of very high harm conduct. Political calls for deportation in April 2026. Politicians Robert Jenrick and Kemi Badenoch call for the couple's deportation following an inquiry report that blamed them failing to prevent the Southport attack. So what are they going to face if they have been blamed and it says that it would never have happened if they had reported him? However, these remain political demands rather than legal actions. The couple originally fled Rwanda in 2002 and were granted asylum in the UK. Returning them to Rwanda would involve complex international and human rights legal challenges. So the Southport inquiry, which was led by Sir Adrian, released its 763-page Phase 1 report on April the 13th. It concluded that the July attack, which was in 2024, was avoidable. It was avoidable. Those three little angels' lives were avoidable and would likely not have occurred if the parents and state agencies had acted differently. But yet they're not going to face any charges or anything whatsoever. Nothing is going to happen to them, even though they have been blamed and it was avoidable. It is fucking outrageous. The report identified several critical parental failures. Withholding information, is that not a charge? The parents, particularly the father Alphonse, were found to have deliberately withheld information from authorities about their son's stash of weapons and violent behaviour. The inquiry found that the parents knew their son was hoarding knives, accessing graphic online atrocities, and even making poison, which was ricin, in his bedroom months before the attack. Failure to report. In the week leading up to the attack, they reportedly came into the possession of information that their son was intending to carry out an attack but did not raise the alarm. Obstruction of agencies. They were criticised for creating significant obstructions to agencies trying to help, often using their son's autism as an excuse for his violent conduct. Lack of boundaries. The report noted they failed to set boundaries, allowing weapons to be delivered to the family home by Amazon without intervention. So when it's saying that there is no legal duty for the parents to report their children's criminality, having poison, ricin, having knives and machetes and all sorts, and knowing that he was intending to carry out an attack and they did not raise the alarm, that is absolutely outrageous. I cannot understand that. It is absolutely blown my mind. I thought at the end of this inquiry they would be facing charges. Hopefully the law gets changed and then they can face charges. But because the law gets changed, and it happened before the law changes, probably won't. Because that is the UK system. It is absolutely fucked. Sir Adrian Fulford acknowledged that the parents faced a nightmare situation as their son was an aggressive recluse who bullied and threatened them. Their failure to cooperate was partly driven by a dangerously short-term desire to prevent violent outbursts directed at themselves. The inquiry ultimately described their complete abandonment of responsibility as utterly unconscionable. The Southport inquiry Phase 1 report released, which I've mentioned on the 13th of April, described a systematic failure of the state. Sir Adrian Fulford concluded that the attack could have been and should have been prevented if agencies had not repeatedly passed the buck in an appropriate merry-go-round. So not only if the parents had reported him, it would have been prevented. It is now saying if these agencies had acted in the appropriate manner, then it wouldn't have happened. So are these going to be facing charges? Are they going to be facing disciplinary actions? Or what is going to be happening with all these agencies? I'm going to talk about which agencies now. Police failures, Lancashire Constabulary and Counter-Terrorism. Failure to arrest. In 2022, police found Rudakubana on a bus with a knife after he went missing and admitted he wanted to stab someone. He was not arrested. Wow. and his home was not searched. What? A missed opportunity that would have uncovered his weapon arsenal and violent internet history. Now this just gets worse. And the reason why I'm bringing you this report and talking about it on here, because you will not hear about this in depth the way I'm talking about it. Obviously, it's been a public inquiry, so they've had to release it. But unless you're looking for this, you will not find it and you will not hear it. So make sure you stay watching this, people, and make sure you share and let people know about these failures, what's been happening, because they will keep it hushed. But here on Behind Bars TV, it will be exploited, and everyone watching and everyone who's subscribed will hopefully hear what's going on. Prevent referrals. He was referred to the Prevent Counter-Terrorism Programme 3 times, not once, twice, 3 times, for violent interests, including searching for school shootings. Come on. Prevent dismissed these cases because he lacked a fixed ideology, like jihadism, a decision the inquiry called a major mistake. This is absolutely mind-blowing and absolutely shocking. The parents of those 3 angels must be fucking foaming at this, knowing that this could have been prevented. He was referred 3 times to the counter-terrorism programme for violent interests, searching for school stabbings and shootings. This is absolutely mind-blowing. Inadequate intervention. Early indicators such as the 2019 assault where he attacked a pupil with a hockey stick were treated as isolated incidents rather than a cumulative risk. Healthcare and NHS failures. Misunderstanding of autism. Medical professionals repeatedly used his autism as an excuse or explanation for his violence rather than recognising it as a factor that increased the risk he posed to others. Poor risk assessment. Just 6 days before the attack, mental health services assessed his risk to others as minimal. The inquiry found they failed to read critical medical notes and lacked curiosity about his violent preoccupations. Social services and local government. Lack of risk ownership. No single agency, social care, early help or youth offending teams accepted overall responsibility for managing him because the risk belonged to everyone. It belonged to no one. Absolutely ridiculous. Information silos. Vital information was repeatedly lost, diluted, or poorly managed as it moved between social services and other bodies. Lack of accountability. The youth offending team was criticised for failing to hold him accountable when he refused to engage with social workers following a 2020 referral. Key recommendations for change. New lead agency. The inquiry recommended a dedicated national agency to oversee complex, high-risk young people who don't fit into traditional terrorist categories. Internet monitoring. Calls for new power to monitor or restrict the internet use of young people fixated on extreme violence. Revamped training. Mandatory training for professionals to ensure autism is never used to downplay violent risk. Now that is absolutely mind-blowing. Yes, I've said it a few times throughout this video, but it is. Knowing that this could have been prevented not just by the parents, but by all these agencies and the police and the counter-terrorism and Prevent. Let me know your thoughts, people, on this, because this has got me raging. Yes, I'd read into this, but the more I'd done this, and then I hadn't read a few of the little bits before I come on and done the video. I've been researching this since yesterday, but I hadn't seen these little bits until I started doing the video, or prior to the video, and as you can tell, I'm absolutely raging. So I can't imagine how the parents of these 3 little girls are feeling. Not just the 3 little girls, the 8 others that he stabbed, and the 2 adults that he stabbed as well. the ones that have been injured and everyone involved in this case, not just the people involved, the people like myself who have witnessed it online and what he's done and how much of a little wrong he is and how much he's protected inside a prison. And then what's happening now with this inquiry. Yes, you can tell by my demeanour, I'm outraged that he's not going to face criminal proceedings. They're going to learn from it, but it's too late. What about the 3 angels that have been took away? Absolutely ridiculous. The only thing we're waiting for out of this, apart from the parents to be charged, which is not going to happen, is for that wrong'un to face prison justice. And I can't wait for the day I come on here and make that video about that. So there is now going on to phase 2. So obviously that was phase 1 and phase 2. What will happen in phase 2? Mahmood also announced the terms of reference for phase 2 of the Southport inquiry, which will focus on the adequacy of arrangements for identifying and managing the risk posed by individuals, like I've just read before. Mahmood said this would include examining how agencies work together, laws around knives and weapons, and the influence of internet and social media. Mahmood told the Commons, the inquiry also identifies a wider issue. There are rising numbers of young men who are fascinated by extreme violence, boys whose minds are warped by time spent in isolation online. This is a risk to us all, where someone is vulnerable to terrorism. They can and should be managed through the PREVENT programme. However, where they are not, there is no clear approach to that risk. So it was published the terms of reference for the second part of the Southport inquiry, and it will face directly into that challenge. The second phase will begin immediately and report back in spring 2027, which is over another year from now. But like I've said, this is absolutely outrageous, and these parents are not going to be facing any criminal charges, because there is a law that the parents will not face the charges, because there's no legal duty for parents to report their children's criminality to the authorities. But this isn't what you would class as criminality, as in committing criminal damage, smashing windows, or doing what stupid kids do on rough council estates where they're getting into trouble and going out and doing daft things. Of course, the parents aren't going to report on that. But this isn't just criminality, this is life and death. When life and death is involved, then surely when the parents haven't reported on the kids, when they know that they're going to go and harm other children, then there should be something in place where they have to report on them. Otherwise, they'll face a life sentence, because that's exactly what those 2 wrong'uns face. That's what I'm going to call them. The wrong'uns parents, 3 wrong'uns altogether. That wrong'uns parents, those 2 wrong'uns, should be facing a life sentence as well. Let me know what you think, people, but that is exactly what I think about those 2 wrong'uns, and that's what I'm going to call them. So let us know what you think, people, and if you are still enjoying the content, remember to comment, like and subscribe, and enjoy the rest of your day, enjoy your weekend, enjoy the week ahead, but most importantly, stay safe, people.